Welcome everybody to from the logo. Thanks for tuning in. The Blazers playing right now against the Detroit Pistons, up 11. Let's go Blazers. They have struggled a little bit lately, but when you got Dame on your team, you always got a shot, right? There's always a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance?
You're never out of it.
There's a chance against the mighty Orlando Magic, Houston Rockets, and Detroit Pistons to eke out close wins.
That's what you got to do. You got to beat up on the cellar dwellers of the NBA. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Blazers' future. Even though we're not giving up on the season, right, Colton? We're not tanking. We're trying to win it. We're trying to win the championship this year.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going to talk a little bit about what the moves that we could make during the offseason, what players, free agents for the Blazers we should keep, re-sign versus let go, who we should trade potentially, and then, who we should target in the free agent class, who we should target from trades, and also the all-important NBA draft where franchises are made and championships are won, right? When you tank to get those top 5 picks, because they always work out. You always get a franchise-changing superstar from a top 5 pick. So how do we want to do this? You guys want to talk about who the Blazers free agents and who we should keep and who we should get rid of first?
Yeah.
Let's do it. It's obvious as it is right now, the roster is probably not a title contender. I think as Blazer fans, we can all admit this year is probably not going to win a title. It's not going to happen.
Championship or bust. Championship or bust.
So what we need to do is look at the roster, see what needs to change, see who we want to keep and who we want to get rid of. And there are some players, that could be pretty divisive just because Blazer fans love their team as it is. They always love maybe overrating some of their players. I'm guilty of that too. And so we need to kind of take a look at the roster and see who can stay and who can go.
So looking at who's going to be a free agent coming up in the next year, I mean, there's some pretty big obvious names, including the 2 guys that we just picked up. They're restricted free agents, but it's still a pretty easy time to let them go if we decide it's not going to work. So talking about Matisse and Cam, how do you think that they're fitting in so far? I guess I'll go first. I feel like Matisse has a lot of upside and potential because of the defensive ability. We've talked a little bit on here about, the idea of pairing Dame and Matisse, maybe with some more minutes, maybe even as a starter. The problem with Thibault being that he's not consistent offensively, but Dame more than makes up for that. Maybe he alone can bring enough points out of the backcourt, especially if Thibault can develop even just a little bit more of a consistent 3. And that defense is something that we haven't really seen in a long time. There have been flashes, even with the struggles that the Blazers have been having, of a really good defensive backcourt where Thibault is able to kind of patch up some of, Dame's gaps just in being a little undersized for some of his matchups. So I think that I'd like to try to keep Thibault if we can. Cam Reddish, I'm not super hot on at the moment. It seems from the beginning just very streaky. We've had players like that before that show flashes, but I don't really see him as an integral part of our plan going forward.
Well, hear me out. I'm going to start with Cam Reddish because I think it's obvious we should keep Matisse around. I think I guess I just said I was going to start with Cam and then I was going to talk about Matisse. So I'll start with Cam. Cam, I don't think the goal with Cam should be to keep him around as a starter. I think we're kind of giving him a long leash right now and giving him that starter role just to see what he's got. I mean, I don't think we should go into the season next season starting Cam Reddish unless we've really gone full rebuild, and just kind of throwing everything away. if you can sign Cam Reddish for cheap production coming off the bench, you're already looking at Nasir Little, who's looking more and more like a scorer off the bench. And then you bring in Cam Reddish, who's a big wing, who can score, drive to the rim. He can pass, he can rebound, he can even defend a little. That's a good player coming off the bench, especially with his size and able, his versatility in handling the ball. If you can keep Cam Reddish, sign him for cheap, I think you can do it. Give the Blazers more depth at wing. We've always had problems having no wing depth. Cam should be cheap. Cam should be cheap. And if he's not, then say see you later. So I think that's that. Don't keep him around as a starter unless you're going full rebuild.
He's a restricted free agent, so unless he shows some real signs in this season, you're right that we probably will be able to keep him around without giving up too much.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't stuck in his first 2 landing spots. This is kind of a weird situation where he comes in as a starter just to kind of see what he's got. I don't think he's going to command a huge number on the market. So if you can sign him for like a depth level player contract for like 3 years, like what Nasir's got, I don't see why not. You need cheap talent on your roster at some point. So if he's a bench player, keep him. And then Thibault, I think is obvious. You keep. I don't know what he's going to command just because awesome defense, but no offense. So it's probably going to be a smaller salary as well. His threes have been promising. He shot well from 3 early. I mean, he's not going to do much else. He can't really put the ball on the floor, but he does cut pretty well and can finish at the rim. And I think that he's fit in well with Dame. I would love to just, again, have him go into the offseason and just shoot threes the whole entire offseason. If he can, keep shooting pretty decently. And like I said, I've said it before, 36, 37% from 3 from that guy. That's all you need from him. I mean, he's not going to be an offensive explosive scorer. That's okay when he brings as much as he does on defense. I think
shooting drills, Matisse. Shooting drills every day.
Shooting drills. I think you keep both players. Put it on the back of
your hand and like flip it up and do all the OG drills.
Yes, exactly. I think he will come back and he will have been working on a shot. I'm sure he knows. I think you keep both players if the price is right, but particularly Thibault, if you can get Cam cheap, keep him.
Some of the other names, Justice Winslow. He's been hurt all year. When he plays, he's promising, but man, his injuries have been. I honestly think
unrestricted.
Losing. Yeah.
So do we take another gamble on him for more years? I don't know.
I don't think so at this point.
You said it, gamble.
Yeah, I just don't think the upside's high enough either with the injury issues he's having. Kevin Knox is another one. He'll probably be gone. Archidian Nakano, however you say his name, he'll probably be gone. I want to keep Eubanks, but I just foresee the offer being too high from around the league. I think that there's gonna be teams that look at him and like what he's done for the Blazers this year. I hope that we can keep him, but I kind of get the feeling that he'll probably move on this offseason.
Other than the big one, who we'll talk about in a minute, he was the main one that popped out to me on this list because I think you're right that some team that's maybe been rebuilding a little bit, or one of those teams like I don't know, like an East Coast Florida team, or something that needs some athleticism.
He's
I could see him going to Charlotte. Why not?
He's a very capable backup big guy. I mean, he's like honestly exactly what a lot of teams want, other than just not being able to stretch the floor. He does everything else that you want from a big guy.
Yeah, his athleticism is really impressive, and there's just enough teams out there that need someone at his size, athleticism, energy. I mean, on a bad team, he might even be able to start if that's what he wants. I don't know if he wants to be a backup on a good team or start on a bad team, but he can probably do either one of those things. So yeah, I worry that his price is going to go up. I'd love to keep him because we don't really have anyone to replace him right now. We don't even have a starting center. So
yeah, I mean, you guys could be right, but this may shock you in terms of, I think that a lot of Blazer fans won't like this, but I think you can kind of let him go if you want, because the reason is this. He's another undersized player at 6'9". I don't want another undersized center. And while Eubanks brings a lot of hustle, a lot of energy, he's been a spark plug all year for the Blazers. I definitely don't think he's a starter. And I want that guy that can control the paint. Drew doesn't control the paint, and that's okay. Like, he's that energy guy off the bench, but I want an athletic center that can control the paint. If we don't have it in Nurkic, I want the backup to bring something else that Nurkic doesn't bring with athleticism to actually control the paint. Eubanks does have athleticism. I'm not saying he doesn't. Like, he's definitely athletic, but he doesn't, provide that guys scared to drive on him presence, rim protection. We need some kind of rim protection that's more than what Eubanks provides. And if it's not going to be from Nurkic, I would like it to be like a Nerlens Noel type player. But if you can sign him cheap, definitely keep him. And if you can get more depth, or if Nurkic gets swapped for a different player and we have a different kind of center in front of Eubanks, and then Eubanks can bring in some energy that we don't have, I would definitely say keep Eubanks. So I could see both ways. But if we don't upgrade Nurkic or change Nurkic out, I need some kind of rim deterrent.
One thing I'll say for kind of to Eubanks' credit is this is something that's happened with the Blazers before, where I think just because we're lacking size, he's playing out of position a little bit. I mean, we're playing him as a center, and I think he's done admirably as a backup center, but he is 6'9", 6'10". And if you look at most sources, he's still listed as a power forward. So he's really taken on the center role, but I think he's more of a natural power forward at 6'10" with leaping ability. And so
I think his size is more of a power forward, but his skill set and what he brings to the game, he's a center at heart. He plays around the rim, he finishes at the rim, he likes to block shots. He can't shoot, which almost all power forwards in the NBA now can stretch at least to the mid-range out to 3-point shot a lot. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. He may be power forward size, but I think his skill set is pretty much locked in that center position.
But there's so many centers that shoot now. I could see pairing him with a 7-foot guy who can shoot and having him still do the dirty work. So I think he might be able to fetch. I'm just saying, I think he's going to be able to fetch money on the market, even if the team already has a big center. I think that he can still do the dirty work that center won't do.
Just to clarify, when I was saying that the Blazers might not really be able to afford him because of an offer, right now he's making less than $2 million a year. So what I was getting at is that if it's just any more than that, it's going to start being an issue. It's not like it's going to be such a big contract that the Blazers couldn't match it. It's just for a backup center. Do you want to pay more than $2 million, less than $2 million a year? Which I don't think so either. But that brings us to the big name on the list, Jeremy Grant. We got him from Detroit this offseason. Started off the season really strong, looked really good, hit a couple game winners for us. And over the course of the season, seems like he's regressed a little bit. He's kind of been in a slump, not really hitting the shots that we need him to, even when the defense is totally tuned to Dame. He's taken 3 guys or whatever and creating wide open shots. Jeremy really hasn't produced very highly in those situations. Obviously, still a lot of natural talent, a lot of potential, even at his age. He's big, athletic, can shoot, can do a lot of things for you. But is he worth the asking price? That it's probably going to be. I don't really know what he's expecting to get. Is it a max? Is that what he's going to want?
I hope not.
Yeah.
Because if that's what he wants, that is a very tough sell.
I've also heard that there's been rumors at least that the Blazers and Jeremy Grant have agreed to a deal like verbally at least, and that nothing official or in paperwork, but supposedly they've come to an agreement on a deal. But I don't know what that looks like. I don't really know what he's looking for. It's going to be kind of a tough decision. I think you pretty much have to re-sign him. You can't just lose him for nothing. You might re-sign him with the idea of trading him soon. Whether what do you have to wait until like December or something like that to trade a free agent signing?
You can sign and trade him right
Yeah,
off the bat, but there's restrictions on that. It's pretty narrow field of players that would probably fit that.
Yeah, so I think that probably whatever happens, he'll probably get re-signed, because I think if you don't re-sign him, then you just lose him, and that'd be a disaster. So you probably are gonna re-sign him. Whether to trade him or to keep him, that's probably gonna be more of the question.
Unless someone's willing to pay him like a max deal, because I don't think that we would match that, honestly. I
Really?
think we might just have to let him walk.
I think you'd have to match. I don't know how you could justify losing that asset right now.
I think it would be a bad contract.
Yeah.
If we matched it. I think we'd be
It
dealing
would,
with
but
the ramifications of that for years, trying to figure out how to get that off our books.
It's the simplest way to look at it for me. We saw this year what a Dame Jeremy Grant duo as the best two players on team is, and it's not enough. So if we're maxing Dame and then maxing Jeremy Grant, when we saw what it looked like this year as the two best players on a team, that is bad, bad, bad. And then if you can't trade that contract, if he, gets worse or whatever, then you are locked in for however long Dame and Jeremy play, on those contracts. And that's the rough part. So you got to keep Jeremy Grant. I agree with you, Kirby, but there's got to be a number where you sit and talk to his agent and say, dude, we cannot pay more than this. And especially because he's not playing as well as the start of the year. At the start of the year, he looked like he was like the number 2 player on a championship team. Now he's like probably the 3rd best player, or even the 3rd, 4th best player on a championship team. So you got to go in with that kind of mindset, and you probably have to pay extra than what you normally would, because it's like the Portland tax to keep players. We always have to overpay our players slightly because, Nurkic was, think about Myers Leonard, like all of our players that we acquire here and try and keep here, we have to overpay them at some point. So he probably will be overpaid, but I don't think that they should max him. I think there's got to be a number that you can find that is not maxing him. I mean, he's probably still going to make like 25 mil a year, and you're just going to have to deal with it, but not.
I mean, that's not even that much more than he's making now. This year he's making 20 million. So yeah, I mean, obviously you try to get him for as cheap as possible, and it's not really rocket science, but I don't really know what the backup plan is if he asks for a max and you say no. Like, what are you doing then? You're telling Dame that like we're not at that point it's like just blow up the whole thing. We have like nothing, no assets, no money, no future really.
It's you're right with the money. Here, I'll really quick say, if you don't sign Jeremy Grant and you try to sign Thibault and Cam Reddish, you really, because we would be able to sign Jeremy Grant through his bird rights, basically. So we can go over the cap to re-sign Jeremy Grant. If we don't re-sign Jeremy Grant, we'd have to lose Thibault and Cam Reddish, and then we could open up about 24 million, like salary slot there, which you could get a couple of the players on the free agent list, but none of the players on the free agent list are very promising. You go down the list, unless you want Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Get to unless we're at that part of the conversation looking at the free agent.
I think we're just about there, because if the question is what's Jeremy worth to us, I mean, it depends on what else is out there, because one thing that I'm concerned about with this whole conversation is like, what kind of a bargaining position does that put the Blazers in if we don't have a choice but to sign him? I mean, he's not doing that much for us. And if we're gonna have to pay him max money just because we don't have any other option, like that's not good. That's having us bend over a barrel.
He hasn't been some bum. I mean, he's not like awful player for us, but you're right. He's not as good as he was at the beginning of the year. And I think on a championship team, he's, like I said, the third or fourth best player on the starting lineup.
And you can't pay your fourth best player a max contract. No championship team does that.
I mean, if he is the number 3 option and we, max him or close to max him, then you still got hopefully you'll be able to get a package around some Simons and some younger guys and get that number 2. Then you'd have Dame, the number 2, and Jeremy. I actually think I think he's better suited to be, that third option. Fourth option, I feel that might be getting a little bit low for him. I mean, if you had 3,
like I said,
better than
third,
Grant,
fourth best player, like you're not a second best player, but it's a lot lower.
Yeah, I mean, he's streaky and he's a play finisher, not much of a play not much of a creator. So you kind of need the 2 guys to do that work, and then he can benefit as the third option off of those. So there still is that route to go. I just feel like if you do lose him, and then you also, like you said, you have to lose Thibault and Cam Reddish to be able to get someone comparable to him, then you're just taking such a step back as far as roster composition. And even if we were going to go out and get like a free agent to replace him, looking at the list, there's really no standout options. There's a few players that might be like a little bit better fits.
Not ones that you could really probably get, in Portland with the rate that they want. And I think that there's a guy that stands out that we need to talk about, but
Christian Wood,
not Christian Wood. No, there's one guy on this
Patrick
list that
Beverly
may shock you. It's like a clickbait headline. This may shock you. There's a guy on here. Player
this
option.
could be our thumbnail. Colton going.
Player option free agent. His name may shock you. It's Draymond Green.
Draymond Green. He's gonna punch
Draymond Green. And here's why. Kirby, you just started the conversation. The punch heard round the world, I guarantee, still is looming. That has to still be looming. If Golden State does not win a title this year, guess who's best buds with Dame? Draymond. I don't want Draymond to be the acquisition and then just sit there and stop. If you can find a way to acquire Draymond and you got another player coming in with it, that's a big
Klay Thompson
player. No, not Klay Thompson. Maybe somebody. What about somebody like Karl Anthony Towns?
Whew.
And then your front court, and you're saying, how are you even going to do that? Well, I'm not
trade.
Cronin. Yeah, trade, and then Draymond's got a player option. You're looking at a front court of Draymond Green and Cat, and you're like, nah, that's fantasy. You're probably right, but how is the fit? How is the fit in Minnesota with Gobert and Cat? I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks that's a good idea, except for Minnesota's GM. It could happen. Stranger things have happened. Kyrie demanded out 7 times in one season. You never know. So I think that if Draymond would be the only free agent on the top free agent list that I would really say, okay, Jeremy's gone because we have a backup plan. That would be it for me. And that would really be a very niche circumstance where Draymond wants to leave because of that punch. I think that punch gives it a slight chance of happening. And he likes Dame. They're best buds. So
yeah, Draymond or no Draymond, I'm into the idea of Cat on the Blazers. That's something I've thought about for a long time. I think that pairing him with Dame could be a pretty formidable duo, and it doesn't seem like things are working out super well there. The thing with Minnesota is I think it's possible if things aren't working out that they're going to try to ship Gobert before they ship Cat. So I don't know.
One issue in Minnesota is it seems like there's, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, I don't have any inside information. I'm not in they're not in my DMs or anything, but it seems like there's some tension between Ant-Man and Cat. It seems like Cat's kind of the leader of the team, the de facto leader, and Edwards is starting to kind of take that spot. And there's been a little bit of tension here and there. It seems like they're grinding against each other a little bit as that process is unfolding. There was the infamous chicken wing thing that happened earlier this year, I think, or was it last year? I can't remember exactly when, but Edwards was like talking about eating chicken or eating chicken in a press game conference or something like that, and Cat like called him out, like said he needs to clean up his diet or something like that. So it seems like there could be some issues there, and it kind of seems like Minnesota, they're gonna choose Edwards when it comes to those two. They're clearly gonna choose him. And that could actually leave Karl Anthony Towns available potentially.
Here's the thing: where have we seen that before? Where there's a guy that's the vet.
Game in LA.
Yeah, the guy that's the vet is like, "Hey, this is my team," and then you got a young guard coming in that's taking over the team and everybody's favorite guard, and then he's like, "Well, what the heck?" The thing is, Cat's been hurt all year with kind of a weird tweak, like hamstring injury, nothing like crazy like ACL damage or
It was
something.
an Achilles, wasn't it? I thought it was his Achilles.
Something, yeah. It's, and something you don't want to play around with, but still nothing like structurally wrong. So we can't really gauge the fit between Gobert and Cat, and they might want to wait longer, but I don't think anybody's going to be trading a huge package for Gobert in the future because everyone deadpanned this trade. Gobert might be stuck there with Ant.
Can they get all of their picks back from
That's what I'm
Utah?
saying. They might want to get their picks back, so trading, but the problem is the fit with Dame is a little wonky with defense. A 1-5 pick and roll with Dame and Cat is bad for the Blazers defensively. That's why I mentioned if you have a side move coming in with Draymond that's unhappy, this all sounds like fantasy, but I'm just saying, like, there are reasons for each little piece that I got going here. And just saying, like, that would be a move that if you want to go all in around Dame and sacrifice your assets, acquire Draymond in free agency and trade your, Ant. They could have Ant and Ant backcourt.
The all Ant backcourt.
Come on, Minnesota. That would be lights out backcourt. So
Ants on a stick.
Yeah, 2 Ants out there. So that's a kind of a move. The Blazers are probably not going to acquire what they need to win a championship through free agency. They've never been a free agent team. Look for big trades. You have to take a swing or you need to build through the draft, and that takes a lot longer than Dame has.
Simons is pretty much our only asset there. We gotta figure out a way to get something for him. It can't be another CJ situation where we end up with Cam Reddish for.
You got Jeremy Grant for CJ.
I mean, not technically, but
it basically
contract wise, right? Money, like there was enough money after getting rid of CJ.
But it created the trade exception that Jeremy Grant fit in, and you got the pick from CJ that turned into Jeremy Grant. So it was basically CJ for Jeremy Grant and Josh Hart, which turned into another first-round pick. Which, by the way, go Knicks. They're on like a 9-game winning streak. That first-round pick is getting worse and worse.
Undefeated,
but at least it's getting
Josh
more
Hart.
Likely that it's staying, right?
He's the heart of the city. All right. So any other free agents we're looking at other than Draymond? I mean, like Porzingis is on here. I don't know if we'd even be able to afford him.
Nope.
There's like Harrison Barnes is on here. He wouldn't be an upgrade from Jeremy Grant, I don't think. And then outside of that, it's just like guys that you'd fill out your roster with. Christian Wood is a free agent.
You guys don't want Russell Westbrook or Patrick Beverly?
Kevin Love's also on here.
What about Kyle Kuzma?
Yeah, he's a big wing, good scorer. He would be a guy that you would want to like, kind of one of those guys to fill out the roster. I think you have to.
He's not a big three, which Wizards fans are saying he's the big three with Beal and Porzingis.
I mean, it'd be. It's tough. It's a puzzle game trying to figure out what the move to make is. I think a lot of it hinges on what you can get for Simons in a trade and what ends up happening with Jeremy as far as re-signing him, because those are pretty much our two big assets outside of Dame. So what can you get for him to try to make something work around the superstar?
I quickly think that the reason the Blazers acquired that first round pick, for Josh Hart, I really think they're going to try and swing that and unlock their Chicago picks. Because they want to say, Chicago, look, like, we don't know when we're going to not be tanking at this rate because we thought you'd have a first round pick by now. Just take this New York first rounder. Hopefully New York doesn't make it like the 30th pick because they're just never going to lose again. But if it stays, in the low 20s or mid 20s even, Chicago might just say, okay, we'll take that one. And then we can start trading all of our picks away. We get a pick this year in the draft, most likely, if we miss the playoffs. You got that, and then you could package Ant, depending on the player you're getting back. You might have to package Nurkic's salary, but getting Simons, who's the lead guard, and all those first-round picks when Dame's old, you might be able to get a good player with that.
Cat.
Maybe. I mean,
who's the other one?
Not, but you got to swing big. You got to try. Help Dame.
Who's the other swinging big?
Do you want to hear the breakdown?
Big.
Do you want to hear the breakdown of what's going to actually happen for the Blazers?
Tell us.
Blazers are going to acquire
Colton.
Joel Embiid, and here is how. I have it ready.
Trust the process.
The 76ers are going to play the Heat in the first round. They're going to get upset. Guess who else is going to get upset? James Harden, because he's tired of that. He wants to go back to the Houston strip clubs. Harden's going to leave back to Houston. There's a lot of smoke about it already. I'm telling you,
it's a player
out
option
there. Harden loves money. Harden loves strip clubs. He's going back to Houston. Joel is pissed off. He's mad. He hasn't gotten out of the second round in his career. Dame's been farther than him. Dame's going to win the scoring title. Joel says, I want to go play with the scoring champ. The Blazers pony up a package. They send every first-round pick they have and pick swaps. Embiid and Dame, dynamic duo. That's it. Then you got Jeremy Grant as the third option. There you go.
Do you have to give up Shaden in that deal?
You do. You give up Simons. You give up Shaden. You give up your first-round pick. You're mortgaging the future, but you're giving Dame.
You got to do it.
A top 3 MVP candidate in his prime. He's 28 years old, 29 years old, or whatever he is. He's playing at the peak of his career. Dame's playing at the peak of his career. That's like Shaq and Kobe level of player. You have to do it. You have to give Dame. Everyone says give Dame a chance. That would give Dame a chance. Call me crazy. It's going to happen. You come right back here after it happens.
Any move like that, if there's the opportunity to do it, you absolutely have to do it. The bigger question is like whether or not those series of events plays out. But you got to do something over the next calendar year. I'm pretty much giving them 1 year. Cronin
trade deadline. Yeah.
Cronin has got to do something to bring a high level, like top 10 NBA player,
top 15 player at least.
Yeah, to Portland. If you just keep making these little incremental steps, it's never going to happen. You got to swing for the fences, and then everything else will fall in around it. The title chasers will come. The players will step up into roles. Some of the young guys maybe will step up, but you got to swing for the fences and get that second star, or else we're just not doing Dame justice.
I bet that Jeremy Grant would play a lot better as the third option on a championship contending team.
He'd be like Tobias Harris.
I get if this is a little bit of a positive and a negative on him, but sometimes I get the feeling that he knows this season's not going anywhere, and he just does not have that Dame gene of trying to will us to a victory every single night. He's a good player, and if he's not winning, he might check out a little bit, which I think is a pretty human thing to do. Dame's just not a human. But
listen, he's a nice guy.
the example of what you just said.
That ain't gonna cut it.
Jeremy Grant was playing in Denver. They wanted him back. Where did he sign instead?
Detroit.
Detroit. So you're probably right, Riley. You're probably exactly right.
All right, so the last thing we have to talk about today, if the Blazers don't trade their pick for Joel Embiid or Giannis or LeBron James, what player in the draft, especially let's say that the rest of the season really doesn't go our way. We tank the rest of the season and end up basically as low as we can get and end up somewhere in that 4 to 8 range, somewhere in there. Who do you draft in that position? Or if you do get lucky and move up, who do you take number 1, Colton? I'm gonna ask a real hard question here.
I don't have time to go on this tanking rant. It's the draft video is gonna have to be saved because I have a lot to say about it. Obviously, you take Victor Wembanyama, number 1 overall, franchise-changing player. I don't even have time to go off on how he would solve every single problem we have.
But what with his St. Louis injuries?
I will summarize it like this: the lottery this year, the pick. If we do miss the playoffs, there are a ton of wings and big players that would help the Blazers. This is a pretty strong lottery class in general. Outside of Victor, outside of Scoot, there is a lot of good players. Brandon Miller, he's got a little bit of legal issues going on, but apparently he's all cleared and nothing's wrong. He is a franchise-changing player, too, and he would go probably number 3. He's 6'9", he's a wing, and he's an explosive scorer and defender. Brandon Miller would change the franchise. There's guys like Jarris Walker. He's 6'8". I've heard a lot of good things about him. Haven't watched him as much as Brandon Miller. The Thompson twins, 2 guys that are 6'7", and they have a lot of skill, a lot of playmaking. They're huge. A lot of wings in this draft, in this lottery. So if the Blazers miss the playoffs, definitely try and get a higher pick. There's a lot of really good wings that would help the Blazers out next season. That's all I'll say for now.
I want a Scoot and Dame backcourt. 2 6'3" guards. How could you stop them? Let us know in the comments how you could stop them. Thanks for watching From the Logo, guys. We'll see you next time. Peace out.